The economy explodes. Cost of living over. The Tories have finally done it, guys. They have finally fixed Britain by listening to the people and not actually change anything except that one little thing that makes them think, oh, I'm just like Winston Churchill now. Just when you thought the debate between metric units and imperial units was mostly over in the UK, oh boy, you made an imperial big mistake, because the UK government recently have given us a little Christmas gift. Not the gift they meant to give us, probably, but let's talk about it. The UK government was hoping to basically switch from the metric system back to imperial units, and they did a survey of their citizens, and it backfired greatly. Probably why the report on this was released in that limbo period during the holidays where hopefully nobody would see it. Hi, my name is Edinger. I'm an American Brit who's been living here for 11 years now, and I have made a video talking about my experiences with the metric system, because after moving from the US to the UK, it took me a bit of time to get adjusted, but I found it's pretty doable. I think most people could probably do it. It's a good vid. And so when I saw this in the news that the UK was attempting to basically just ignore a bit more of the metric system, I was like, what? But let's see what the government themselves have said about their consultation. The UK has a long and proud history of using imperial measures, and their use is closely associated with our culture and language. We also have a long history of colonization, but I don't think we necessarily need to keep that either, you know? We commonly refer to our walks in miles, our fuel economy in miles per gallon, and we buy our beer and milk in pints. Now, this is a good sentence because I think right there, they've summed up every instance of the imperial still remaining in the UK. Every other instance, I'm pretty sure we use metric, so it feels like they're kind of being like, yes, see, look at all these examples. That's it. That is a finite list. If you're unaware of the EU/UK law that the government was trying to overthrow, you might not know that essentially, if you are buying any sort of product in the UK, for the most part, it needs to have the metric units displayed most prominently. You can also display the imperial units, if you'd like, next to it, so that's why, for instance, you can see things like 4 pints of milk, because that is a traditional unit of measurement for milk in the UK, but you will see the equivalent in milliliters right next to it prominently. One of the big positives of this law is that it's much easier for consumers to compare and contrast items, especially ones that are measured in different units. So if you have an item measured with mass and another item that's measured with volume, well, for instance, everyone knows that 1 liter of water is equal to 1 kilogram of water, so it's easier to kind of compare and contrast, especially when it comes to nutritional labels. As we all know, the metric system and being able to just have things divisible by 10 is a little bit easier than going, okay, I need a 3/8 inch to 1/4 20 screw that goes into the And so to feel like they got their first win over the EU after Brexit, the UK government was like, we'll look into this law, we'll repeal this one, but let's just find out what the British public feels first about getting their freedom units back. The consultation ran from June 3rd to August 22nd, and they received 101,108 responses from the British public. All right, you had the majority of those people coming from consumers, you had business people and people in academia. And how exactly did they vote? Well, a startling, or maybe not so startling, 98.7% of the British public did not want to remove the metric system. Can you believe it? I feel like anyone who has used the metric system understands its pros. Now that people have gotten used to it, they're like, oh yes, I would not want to go back. 81.1% of the people that were polled wanted to keep the status quo, which means, you know, they've got some pints, they've got some miles, but most stuff is still going to be most prominently in the metric system. You also had 17.6% of people were like, I want to go full metric. This pint stuff, leave it for the history class. All we want is full metric. I actually am quite surprised at that's so high. But what about everybody else? Well, you had 0.4% of people wanted to go purely imperial. Who is this? Whose grandma answered this question? And then lastly, 0.9% just wanted more choice. They wanted more imperial. I don't necessarily see anything necessarily wrong with that, but it does feel like offering more choice with imperial units is like allowing people to take a few steps back for no reason, just to remember the good old days. And so yes, the number from the title/thumbnail, 99,665 Brits that all voted together out of the 101,000 roughly have saved the metric system in the UK, as the government has decided, well, I guess if it's such a large proportion of people that don't want it, fine. We will not be expanding their imperial units. But what is the government planning to do instead to feel like it's kind of a win? Well, strap yourselves right on in. They're going to make sure they can tell you about the freedoms that you have, that you can use more imperial units alongside the metric, you know, especially if you're a business person, you're making some products, you can still use the imperial, you know, just put it on side. That's nice. Or, and here's the one that's all over the news now, can you believe it? You can now buy a pint of wine. Yeah! We did it. The government, wow, UK government, they did something. They They allowed for the sale of pints of wine because that's what Winston Churchill would have wanted. Oh, that man, he used to love having a pint of wine. And these days, you only get half a liter. Oh, can you imagine getting 68 milliliters less wine? But this is the headline, okay? The Tories have finally come out with a win. You can now buy wine with 68 milliliters more in it. Yeah, that's great. In it. Oh, I'm sorry, 68 milliliters? Didn't I mean, 2 2/10 of an ounce? Is that right? Oh, no, wait, that's US customary? Is it 2 3/10 of a fluid ounce? Oh, it's easy to understand. Now, this was a pretty extensive polling in the UK public, but even when it comes to the Conservative members of Parliament who were asked if they support kilograms, it turns out almost all of them agreed, until they were told this isn't something to help with the strain on the UK pensions market because they're not actually going to be killing any grands. And if you're wondering what the reasons could possibly be for that 1.3% that wanted to expand the Imperial units in the UK, well, one of their main arguments was it would provide greater inclusivity for those who are more familiar with using Imperial units. So basically people that won't exist within 30 years? I'm assuming these same people would prefer it if we'd go back to the phones where you have to stick your finger in and move it around, because this smartphone stuff, I don't know. I'm not as familiar with it. I'd rather go back to the old school stuff, please. Thank you. So with nearly 99% of the British public in favor of keeping the metric system the way it is, why, oh why, would some people have a problem with this? Some people that you could say remind you of some sort of antagonist from a Charles Dickens novel, perhaps? Sir Jacob William Rees-Mogg has recently come out in the news and said it's hard to see why this harmless little measure, I don't think he meant that pun, but I'm going to pretend that he did, is not being implemented, especially as our largest trading partner, the United States, still uses Imperial units. That is not the pro you think it is. Trying to be like, come on guys, the US is doing this. I don't know, man. The UK's largest trading partner is actually the EU. Which deals in metric measurements. I love that. They just like fact checked Rees-Mogg there to be like, actually, it isn't our #1 trading partner, which would be the EU, which would be the metric system, which would counter your main argument. But he said it's typical of rather bureaucratic and dull approach this government likes to take. So dull, keeping things the way that everyone can understand and not regressing back into history and using measurements that are based on the length of the foot of our rulers. If anything, this is the least bureaucratic type of thing I can imagine. Like they actually polled the public and got a pretty sizable decision there. Like, it's not like this is going through lots of hoops. It's like, oh, this is what the British people want. There's no bureaucracy needed here. You're asking for bureaucracy to step in and stop this. But like I said, the Conservative government is going to view this as a win because now you can sell wine in pint glasses. Either way, you get people like Kevin Hollenrake, the enterprise minister, quoted as saying, "Our exit from the EU was all about moments like this, where we can seize new opportunities and provide a real boost to our great British wineries and further growing the economy." Okay. How much more do you think the UK economy is going to grow by allowing wineries to put an extra 68 milliliters in their bottles of wine? I don't know. It's like these people are living in such a delusion where they're like huffing that copium so hardcore, like, please, any sort of minuscule win that we can think of for Brexit not destroying our economy. Oh no, this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted to take back control. We wanted to sell 68 milliliters more. I mean, oh no, 2.3 fluid ounces. Oh man, we're gonna be making so much money. This right here, this is what Brexit was about. Seizing control of our country. And how much you can put in a bottle of wine. The economy explodes. Cost of living over. The Tories have finally done it, guys. They have finally fixed Britain by listening to the people and not actually change anything except that one little thing that makes them think, oh, I'm just like Winston Churchill now. Anyway, that's the news. So tell me what your thoughts are in the comment section below. And also, if you like this new style I've been going for a couple of weeks now, I'm doing some more topical things in the news, my opinions on them, while balancing that out with all the other things that I'm currently planning for 2024. If you're interested in a more in-depth take at looking at the metric versus imperial for lots of different units and my experience in adapting after moving to the country, I'll link my video on that topic above. It's one of my best. So thank you very much for the long support. Subscribe. I make new videos every single Sunday and sometimes more. I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.